Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, first, let me just say that what a joy it is to be working with Senator Levin. And I know the public out there thinks that no Republicans like any Democrats and vice versa. That's kind of what the flames they try to fan, but it's just not true. In this committee, I can only think of two issues that where Senator Levin and I disagreed with each other. And the fact that he has been here he's been through 16 of the NDAAs as either chairman or a ranking member. So I'm sure that's some kind of a record. But just to work with someone you know is going to be totally honest with you, and when you have a difference of opinion, that you're working together, it really is a joy. And I would hope that we could be an example for some of the other committees where sometimes it's not that much of a joy. The long history that he's had here and the integrity that he's expressed is just, you'll be sorely missed, I have to say to my good friend, Senator Levin. The bill, as Senator Levin said, that we will be having to get to before we leave, has passed for 52 consecutive years. Now that really says something, but each year there's always a problem. The comment that was made on the land package, I think the process is wrong. Regardless of the merits of the bill, and of course, as it was pointed out by Senator Levin, it was supported in a bipartisan way by all the appropriate committees. That's not us, that's them, and the process should not allow others to come. So I think it is flawed, and I don't think it's going to happen again. I really don't. I've talked to the people who are going to be involved in next year's NDAA, which, by the way, we'll start working on in February this year. So that's why we're going to, and I'll run over a couple other reasons why we have to get this done. But we have done this for 52 consecutive years, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to get this done. We passed this bill out to the floor from our committee, the committee chaired by Senator Levin over here, on May 23rd. That was the day after it was done in the House, out of their committee. So we were ready to do this way back in May, and the problem was we could not get it on the floor. I can remember Senator Levin and me coming down to the floor and just begging people to bring amendments down. You know, we have to have amendments down here because we can't expect the leader to bring this to the floor unless we know that people are going to be working on amendments, and so they did. They responded. We had many amendments come. I don't remember exactly how many were put forth, but I do know that we considered and put into this package, when we did it through the Big Four method, which is the only thing left for us to do, 47 of those amendments. It divided almost equally Republican and Democrat amendments. So we did consider those amendments and actually put them in as a part of the bill. And of course, despite pushing for months for us to be the NDAA to be considered under regular order, which is what we should have done, we should have been able to do, we found ourselves in the unfortunate situation that we're in today. And I'm reminiscent of last year. Last year we went up all the way up to the 26th of December before we finally passed it. Now, you know, it'd be really a disaster if we didn't pass it. People don't realize that if we don't pass this bill, now our last chance is this week. I mean, the House is going to be out of there. There's no way we can have amendments or change anything now from the product that we have. We've already got a lot of the amendments in, but we can't make changes. We can't have another bill because we're out of time. It just couldn't happen unless it happens with this bill. And I know a lot of people would prefer to have something else, although I know that this bill is going to pass by a large margin. It is a good bill. And when people realize what would happen if we didn't pass this bill, it would be a disaster. Enlistment bonuses. You know, these kids, a lot of them are over there serving. They've been told that they're going to have certain things happen with them, with bonuses and these things. Well, then all of a sudden, on December 31st, if we don't have a bill, those expire, and those kids would not have enlistment bonuses or re-enlistment bonuses. The retention of incentives, the incentives for for troops with critical skills. We hear a lot about the SEALs and the great work that they're doing. There are others around, but these critical skills incentives would go away on December 31st. The incentive pay for flight pay, here's an interesting one now. I've researched this because there's a lot of competition out there with our pilots, the pilots for heavy vehicles as well as strike fighters. They are, right now there's competition with the airlines. Everybody wants to hire these guys, and so there is competition out there. But all of a sudden the flight pay would come out December 31st if we don't pass this bill. If it comes out, that means we're going to lose some of these guys. And it's a $25,000 a year bonus for these guys over a 10-year period. So it is $250,000. However, if for each one that decides not to come back, to retrain someone to the status of an F-22 would cost about $17 million. So we're looking at bonuses that might be $25,000. Then the alternative, if we don't get this done by December 31st, would be upwards of $17 million for each one of these. So that's really, really significant. We have skill incentive pay and proficiency bonuses, all those who go out the window. And so that singularly would be enough reason to just say we have to have it, we just can't do without it. It'd stop all military construction. That would be on December 31st. Now, one of the areas where the chairman and I disagree is in Gitmo, and that's we've had a friendly and an honest difference of opinion on that. I look at Gitmo as one of the few resources that we have that's a good deal for government. We've had it since 1904, and it only costs us $4,000 a year, and half the time Cuba forgets the charges, so it's a pretty good deal. And there's no place else that we can put, in my opinion, the combatants. People say, well, you can bring it back to the United States. The problem we have this, if you intermingle some of the people there with the prison population, these people down there are not criminals. They're people who teach terrorism. So there are a lot of arguments against that. And that itself could be a 2-hour speech here, but we're not going to get into that. I'm just saying there are some areas where the chairman and I disagreed, and there are a lot of compromises that we had to have because we knew we had to have the bill. We wouldn't have, if we don't pass this bill, the European Reassurance Initiative to stand up against Russian aggression. I went over, I shouldn't have done this because I was on the ballot this year for re-election. But for the week prior to our election here, I went over to see what was happening in Ukraine because Ukraine was having their elections the week before we had our elections. And not many people are aware that in Ukraine, Poroshenko, what happened in their election. In Ukraine, a political party cannot have a seat in parliament unless they get 5% of the vote. And the vote was taking place a week before our vote. Well, this would be the first time in 96 years that the Communist Party will not have one seat in Parliament. That's amazing. And, we have to understand what is happening with Putin. I also went over to Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, in those areas in the Baltics. That's another problem that we have, and they want to give us the assurance that it's not just Putin over there in Ukraine, but they're becoming aggressive. I coined the term, what Putin's trying to do is deregionize Europe and to take out all the freedoms that were there and try to put the old coalition together. So anyway, it's a huge thing, and that's addressed in this bill in a very aggressive way with the reassurance initiative. So, and also we would not have, if we don't pass this bill, the Counterterrorism Partnership Fund, which I think we're all aware of is so necessary with ISIL on the rampage that they are. So we have a lot of the provisions. I think the chairman did a good job of covering these, or a couple of that perhaps might be overlooked, or I might add for my personal interest. One is the support of the aircraft modernization program. People talk about how, and historically, we've always had the best of everything, but now when you look at China, you look at Russia, and what they're doing, It's a very difficult thing for us. You know, we had the F-22, the president terminated that program in his first year in office, and now we have all of our eggs in the basket in terms of strike vehicles and the F-35. A lot of people don't like the F-35. You know, but that's what we have to have, and that is in this bill to continue with that. The E-2D surveillance aircraft, that's one that very few people know about. It's one of the ugliest airplanes in the sky, but it's one that is necessary for surveillance and other functions of government. The KC-46, the tanker aircraft, we've been using the KC-135 now for decades. And we have to go toward a more modern vehicle there, and we do have on the books, and we'll continue to do that, working with the KC-46. And so several others, some improvements to the workhorse of the military, the C-130 aircraft, and other vehicles. So without this bill, we're going to have to stop some of these things and think about the cost. We have contracts in the midst of contracts right now that we could be in jeopardy of losing. The construction on military and family housing that is there, it's very significant. So I think all these things, and one thing that I think people are interested in, this will end the reliance on Russian-made rocket engines. We hear a lot about that, and this has kind of a time frame when the current contracts run out, and that we're going to be developing our own rocket engine. I think that's, I've heard from a lot of the experts outside. Tom Stafford is one of the famous astronauts. He's from Oklahoma, and he and I have talked at length about what we are going to be able to do with some of these rocket engines. So I think that's enough reason right there why we're going to have to do this, and I think everyone realizes that. We've heard a lot of things that frankly are not true. Unfortunately, there are some groups that were kind of anti-military groups that came out with some things that weren't true, and some of the talk show hosts that I admire were given information that wasn't quite as accurate as it should have been. And right now, if you can think of no other single major reason to do it, to pass this bill, it's to take care of those individuals that are in the field right now that are fighting. We have the exact count, and I'm not sure we use accurate figures here. 1 million, as of today, 1,779,343 troops in the field, or enlisted personnel. And these are the ones that would be affected, 1.8 million of them. That we would be reneging on the commitments that we had made to them. So when we hear the criticism that we're somehow cutting their benefits to put in that land package, that just isn't true. The land package that happens, and again, we don't need to talk about this because that's not our committee. That's the committee that is referred to by the chairman in his remarks. It's the Energy and Natural Resources Committees of the House and the Senate. But it's budget neutral. Over a 10-year period, the CBO, it says it's budget neutral, so that there is no legitimate argument that you're using any of the funds that would otherwise go to the military on the land package. And it's one, I have to say this, the process was wrong. We shouldn't have, and we've done this in the past, and we're not going to do it again, but we shouldn't have had a land package come in. It has nothing to do with defense, but nonetheless, it's there. So I was offended by the process. Frankly, I have to confess, it's good for the soul, I guess. And after reading it, I thought, you know, that's a pretty good bill. And if that were brought up, if that had been brought up outside of this, I would have still voted for it. But the process is wrong, and I think we all understand that. We did the best that we could. So we have these things that are going on right now, and I just think that we can't take a chance on that not having, or for the first time in 53 years, not passing an NDAA bill by the end of the year. It would be a crisis, and while the system could be criticized the way it happened, you know, considering that we passed our bill out of the committee on May 23rd, we should have had it on the floor. We should have had it done in regular order. and we'll do everything we can in the future to try to make that happen. But for 2 consecutive years now, we have not been able to do that. We've had to go to the system where they call the Big Four, the chairman and the ranking member of the House and the chairman and the ranking member of the Senate, to pass this bill. And I think in this case, we've come up with a good bill. We've been able to incorporate 47 of the amendments that have come from those that were filed to be added on the floor. So we've done the best that we can, and there's no other alternative now when you consider what will happen if for some unknown reason, this would be the first year in 53 years that we don't have an NDAA bill. So I would say this, I'll just repeat what I started off with, and that is, what a joy it's been to work with Carl Levin over these years in the capacity of either the chairman or the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and you'll be sorely missed. And oddly enough, we also have the same situation happening over on the House side with Buck McKeon. I've served with him when I served in the House, and he's going to be retiring after this. So we have 2 retiring chairmen of the 2 what I consider the most significant committees here in Washington. So we're going to continue to work together for the rest of this bill, and we're going to have a good bill, and we're going to uphold our obligation to that 1,779,343 enlisted personnel in the field. We're not going to let them down. I'll yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senator from Michigan.
First, let me thank Senator Inhofe for his friendship, most importantly, but the great partnership that we've worked out. It's been a real pleasure working with you. I should perhaps just say that we're confident that our successors will carry on this tradition as well, that Senator McCain, the new chairman, Senator Jack Reed, who will be the new ranking member, will be carrying on this tradition that we've done everything we know how to maintain. And I just want to, again, thank my good friend Jim Inhofe and his staff, who worked so well with the staff on this side. We talk about this side of the aisle, that side of the aisle. In this bill, obviously, there will be differences, very rarely, by the way, on a partisan basis, even when there are differences. But the aisle sort of disappears when it comes to the Defense Authorization Bill, and that's the way it should be. And I yield the floor.
Let me reclaim my time just to make one other comment. The 2 people who are sitting down here with us, Peter Levine on your side and John Bonzel on our side, their compatibility in working together is also kind of unprecedented. It doesn't happen very often, and I can't speak for you, Senator Levin, but I can speak for me, that without these 2 working together, I sure could not have participated in a meaningful way. So I want to thank them both.
Well, you are speaking for both of us, I can assure you. That comment and so many other things that you said. And I think at this point, unless there's someone else who wishes to be recognized, I yield the floor. I apologize.